All right, welcome to Office Hours. Today is August 5th, and we're here to talk about SEO and all things marketing websites and stuff like that. So we tried a tradition to start a tradition last week where we thought, let's start off our time with some success story that happened to us over last week. What's something good that happened? Maybe it's a task you're able to get to, or maybe some client results you're able to see, or maybe it's client management issue that was like, yay, finally got this to work. Do either of you have a success story that you'd like to share?
I wrote up a proposal including SEO
Wow,
to offer them SEO.
that's great. Did you,
Well,
when did you send that out?
Monday, haven't got an answer yet, but it was Monday.
Great, congratulations. Good luck on that.
Thank you.
absolutely. Well, my success thing is a little bit more personal. I finally got around to redoing my own business website. It was sorely needing updating, and it's been on my to-do list probably for 3 or 4 months. So the fact that I actually got around to it and got it done, I'm very happy with that.
That I empathize with that accomplishment because the cobbler's kid has no shoes. Like my website sucked for a long time. And it just took me a long time because I was focusing on everybody else. Never looked at my own site. So that's a very commendable accomplishment.
Now, if I can just get my own blog post up this week, woohoo!
Yeah. Yeah. I empathize with that as well. My success story is a little weird and it's a little niche, but I had a client that had a Google My Business listing with incorrect information. And so I have permission to go into their account. I went in to update it, and then Google rejected my updates. And I changed it again, and Google rejected it. Kept reverting back to what Google thought it should be. It was the completely wrong business name, completely wrong office hours. It opened at 9 a.m. and closed at 5:30 a.m. So it was never open. They even designated the wrong state to which they belong, so they couldn't even be found in their own state. I did not know what was going on. I tried everything I knew to try to update this. I ended up calling Google My Business, not calling, sounds like I'm more important than I am. There's a support, Google My Business has a support email where you can email them or submit a message. I ended up resorting to that because I was just stumped. And they've told me a third-party API was updating the listing. And it turns out, I don't want to go into the solution on this because this is public. And I think I found a way to exploit Google My Business to change a competitor's listing. And I was able to solve it, which was the success story. I was like, thankfully able to fix it. But it basically meant that someone who knew how to do this could go in and change a competitor's Google My Business listing and then not be able to change it back. So yikes. I reported the problem to the API company that run the API. I don't know if they took me seriously or not. I tried to warn them that someone could take advantage of this, but I'm just relieved to finally get that figured out. It was just frustrating me, and the client was frustrated, and thankfully, Google My Business support is a lot better than it used to be, and they'll actually help you. So that was my success story.
So, what happens now is that because of this, Google is going to try to figure out a way to prevent that from happening, which may make using putting in APIs and this and that a lot more difficult than what it is now.
It wasn't a problem with the Google API. It was a problem with the service I was using that was updating the Google API. And I was just very surprised as I delved into the API, how it was working. Someone at the service had made an assumption, and wow, it was. I told the Google rep that I was speaking with what I discovered, with the hopes that next time someone encountered a problem, Google could suggest, here's the solution quicker. But yeah, it's scary. There are people out there who are nefarious SEOs who try to trick and game the system because that's their SEO philosophy, and it can really hurt a business. And that's very frustrating and sad that I work in an industry where people somehow find that legitimate or a good idea. Like, that's just, if this was a small business, you could really put someone out of business if you did what they did. If there's their only marketing, and it really frustrates me that people think somehow that it's a legitimate tactic. Just very disappointing.
There is a program that I have seen offered for sale where basically, and it's that kind of, I think it's basically that kind of thing where you're redirecting traffic that should be going to person's A site to your site. So they may be interested in a similar product, but the company that they're trying to get to, they don't see it. They end up on your site and buying your thing. So it sounds like a very, very similar, and yeah, people are selling programs that help you do that.
Well, I often think of something you said a couple of weeks ago, Lavanya, like, this SEO stuff this takes a lot of work. There's a lot to this.
Yeah.
And there is. And so it's really tempting to just buy software and cheat the system than it is to actually do the stuff that's necessary. But my philosophy is, if we do it the right way, we'll outlast those people who keep chasing. Okay, so Google shuts down this loophole. Now they got to find a new loophole. Meanwhile, we just keep plodding along, keep doing the right thing, and we'll win. They might jump ahead of us now and then, figuring out the next loophole, but I don't like it doesn't feel like I'm being helpful to my clients that way. It feels like I just have to keep getting slimier and dirtier. And I don't think that's what SEO should be. And I know it doesn't have to be that way. I don't do those things with my clients, and they do well. So I provide the curious ants to help you know what to do, understanding that, yeah, there's a lot of work here. It's not easy. Well, thank you for sharing your success stories. I'm so glad to hear these things. Now, Anita, you were asking a question earlier about SEO and the Yoast WordPress plugin. Can you ask that question again?
Certainly. So I'm fairly new to working in WordPress, and Yoast was every place I could, use Yoast. So that's what I've got on here. But my problem is, on the free version, it allows for one keyword or phrase, and that's it. And with this particular site I'm working on, that's not going to cover it. I need to put in geographic information, and then there's several keywords that definitely apply for this business. And I'm just wondering, how do I either go about doing this with a plugin that is not Yoast, or in WordPress in general, or, you know, do I need to get my client to pay for Yoast Premium? I just want to be able to put in the adequate SEO information for it to work well for her.
Okay. I think this is a great question, and I think it's really good because I think a lot of people get very confused and frustrated with Yoast for this. I'm a big advocate of Yoast. Friends of mine, like, you know, Lavania's seen me at conferences, and I met Yoast one time in a elevator, and it was a hilarious thing when Steve Schwartz was with me in the elevator with Yoast and Yoast's wife, and Steve turns to me and says, "Hey, did you know Yoast is downstairs?" And I said, "Well, Steve, Yoast is standing right next to you." And Steve was embarrassed, and we all laughed. And that's the only time I've ever met Yoast. Nice guy, great plugin. The plugin value is a lot of things that are unseen to most people. For instance, the Yoast plugin will automatically add different forms of schema to your website to help Google understand the content on your site. Just does it automatically for you. You don't even think about it. You just install it and it works. The Yoast plugin has a really great XML sitemap feature. It allows you to add and subtract pages from that XML sitemap, which is important. For instance, if you have a page like a confirmation page of a goal, so you don't really want Google crawling. Lots of really good things. It adds Open Graph markup. So when you share a blog post on social, you get the featured image with it. It looks nice and it's neatly formatted, like a lot of really great advantages. The frustrating thing I find on Yoast is the keyword feature and the green light. And I think it's there's a couple reasons it's confusing. One, I think people confuse the keyword field in Yoast with what used to be called a keywords meta tag. A keyword meta tag is a way we used to suggest on each page the keywords for which the page was relevant. This is different from a meta description, and it's different from a title tag. It is a keyword meta tag. Whenever we used to do SEO, we would go ahead and add the keywords that we thought the page was relevant for in there. Google has, in the last 5 years, said they ignore the keyword meta tag. There are indications that Google may even consider the keyword meta tag to be a spam signal. So I recommend people ignore the keyword meta tag on their pages and instead write content that speaks to customers. The value of the green light keyword button in Yoast is if you can pick one keyword, and like you said, sometimes you need more than one keyword on a page, but if you can pick one, Yoast will tell you little SEO tips like, did you use the keyword on the page? Is it in your title tag? Is it in your meta description? Is this the only page on your website for which you're focusing this keyword? These are important things to know. And in that way, the keyword field in the Yoast SEO plugin is very helpful. Where people get into problems is when they obsess on the green light. We got to remember that Yoast is a third-party tool that is trying to help us understand how to do better SEO. But Google does not know what keyword you've put in the Yoast keyword field, nor does putting the keyword in that help your page rank better. It helps Yoast understand what you're trying to aim for on that page and then just make some suggestions to improve your content. So I don't pay for the premium Yoast plugin because I don't think it's helpful to add more than one keyword per page. I do pay for the Yoast local search plugin, and that's a kind of a different conversation. I do recommend it. That's the only Yoast plugin I pay for, and I think it's worthwhile. But the premium to add extra keywords, and there's a couple other features in the premium that might be valuable, but I don't do it for the keyword box. Now, I would like to show you a couple things that might help you compensate for only having one keyword in the Yoast box. And that has to do with using the SEO game plan, the Curious Ants. So if you go in to the process, one of the steps of the process is to build an SEO blueprint. What an SEO blueprint is it's assuming you've done keyword research and you know that you have certain topics on that you want to connect with your customers. And you've done the keyword research and you've grouped the keywords into similar topics. Because one of the things that you're thinking about exactly right, Anita, is we don't want to think of only one word on every page. We want to think of several phrases on every page for which that page could be ranking. So we want to get away. We used to do SEO. We'd say this page is going to be about personal injury lawyers in Charlotte, and another page will be about personal injury attorneys in Charlotte, and another page will be about personal injury attorneys in Gastonia. We'd say 3 keywords, 3 pages. Well, now we know Google is far more sophisticated than that, or at least now Google is far more sophisticated than that. And so what we want to do is have one page for those 3 keywords: personal injury lawyer in Charlotte, personal injury attorney in Charlotte, personal injury attorney in Gastonia. That might be the way to do this. So once you've determined the groups of keywords and combined them into the sets that are all in common, then you need to create the blueprint. And what the blueprint is just kind of I even have a Google sheet here that you can click and use that might help you manage your websites. So the way it would work here is you'd put in a URL, the page that you're going to optimize. You'd enter a keyword to focus upon here. You'd maybe type out a suggested title tag that you would use. You'd maybe type out a suggested meta description you'd use, and a couple other pieces of information that I suggest you add here. But this kind of helps you manage your site to say, every page should have a topical focus, not a keyword focus, and keep straight of which page you're focusing on for which topic. Again, each topic has many, many keywords associated with it, but we don't need to have the Yoast SEO plugin premium version to keep track of all the different keywords associated with each page. I just use a spreadsheet to do that. And that ends up helping me keep things straight. And I don't really need to pay for Yoast Premium in order to keep things straight. Does that come close to answering your question, Anita?
Okay, so let me see if I can give back to you what I understand. What you're suggesting is that for each page, like with my own, I have one page that deals with social media. That's the topic of my page. So rather than worry necessarily about any particular keywords, because yes, and you're right, because Wix tells you Google totally disregards your keywords, but other search engines may still use them. So they do provide a place for you to be able to put those in. Um, but so my topic is social media. Um, my meta description would basically, in a few words, this is what this page is about. And that's really what Google's going to use along with what it sees on that page to determine whether or not what I'm offering is relevant to that topic. Is that basically?
Yeah, I think what Wix says when it says enter keywords, it's referring to the meta keyword tag.
Yes.
And I do not recommend filling that out.
Okay.
I would ignore that. Wix might be right in the sense that Google, some search engines other than Google might use it. However, I am worried that Google considers it a spam tactic. And even if I might get traffic from some other search engines that might use it, that's a lot of mights, I don't want to look bad in Google's eyes.
Right, because that's honestly where the majority is going to come from.
Right.
Okay.
So I keep track of what I'm focusing on somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where that blueprint might be helpful to kind of say, oh, this is the phrase. But I think too, keywords really should be a phrase. So like if you're doing a page about social media, there's a lot of phrases that someone might search for to do that. Social media consultant, social media services, social network consultant, social network services, social media company. And doing the keyword research would help you to know how are people searching, so you could determine what are the most important of all those that you should focus on, right?
Mm-hmm.
That while you want to focus on the most important one, that doesn't mean you only want to mention that word on that page. You want to include the other versions of this so that you don't fall into the old SEO trap of repeating the same word over and over and over and over again on your page.
Right.
Google knows that social media company and social network consultant are the same thing, or at least close enough that they're not going to hold it too close. For instance, lawyers is a really good example for this. If you do a Google search for personal injury attorney near me, you will see Google highlight your keyword that you've entered into the search results into the search results, right? Below it, it'll highlight the word. Look carefully and you'll find, though, even if you use the word attorney, Google will highlight the word lawyer because it knows an attorney is a lawyer.
And most of us use those two words interchangeably.
Right. In fact, there might be a very specific distinction. I don't know what it is. And it's so common in the vernacular to not make a distinction that Google says they're the same. So Google thinks about our pages topically. Now, when it comes to other things, it might be harder to see that, to see the nuances. But we got to get away. Don't be tempted by thinking about one word per page. Think topically about a page and understand there's going to be several words that relate to that topic.
Right.
And so that's what we want to focus on. So it's because of that the Yoast SEO plugin, I think, gets people confused and frustrated. And I've seen people go to real extremes to try to make it turn green, and they end up hurting themselves by redoing pages and changing the URL and stuff like that. That could be a real problem.
Yeah, that was the one thing everybody, where I've seen people talk about Yoast, they pretty much said, don't worry about whether it's green, red, or orange,
Okay, yeah.
That helps a lot.
Okay.
Now, you mentioned something about local, because with this particular website, I do need to make sure that her service area is definitely very much something that people can use to find her. So, um, you said that there was a plugin that you do use for local things.
Yeah, so um, there's two different things when it comes to local optimization. One is making sure your content uses geographical terms that describe where the business is located. So whereas a social media consultant can really serve someone anywhere in the country or the world, really, right?
Right.
If you are a lawyer, because of the bar association, you might be limited to a particular state, but you can only serve people in. So if that's the case, you probably would want to explicitly mention the town in which you exist as you are describing yourself on your copy, on your page. So I think a lot of companies will assume people know that they are located in a particular area and not explicitly say, I am located in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Los Angeles, California, or Cherry Hill, New Jersey, or whatever. So that's the first part, is just making sure you're describing yourself using local terms. The second piece of local optimization, I'm going to share my screen again. Is what I call local citations or local listings, which is actually a step after the SEO blueprint. And
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at now.
yeah. And so what this is another piece of the pie. On one sense, you want your website to show up in response to people searching for your service in an area. In another sense, you want the Google My Business listing to show up for people searching for your business in an area too, because you can get a map result, and in the map result, you can show up more prominently than even just your website. And this describes the process that you'll need to follow to help make sure or improve your Google My Business listing ability to show up in the search results. So there's basically a couple of factors. The first one is creating a Google My Business listing, owning it, verifying it with Google. The second is what they call NAP consistency, name, address, phone number consistency. So just by creating a Google My Business listing, you've informed Google about your business, but it doesn't know how confident it can be in that. So what it does is goes to other websites that it respects and says, I wonder if this business is listed on these websites as well. And when it looks for that, it looks for NAP consistency, consistency in the name of the company. Is it the same as everywhere else? Consistency of the address of the company. Is the company's address always listed the same? And consistency in the phone number for the company. If the name, address, and phone number are consistent with Google My Business and several other respected websites, Google is more confident in your listing and is more likely to serve it to people searching for you. So there's this Google Sheet I created here for you that can help you with this process. What it's suggesting you do is fill in the basic information for your business, so you always have it in one place. Because again, we got to make sure all these websites have exactly the same information, the same business name, the same address, the same phone number. Then here is, as of well, probably about a month ago when I finally compiled this list, or recently compiled this list. Here are the different websites that Google uses to consider when it looks for name, address, phone number consistency. Is your name, address, phone number the same on Facebook? There used to be a search engine named Yahoo people use. Well, Google still uses the Yahoo business listing to do that. Apple Maps, Yelp, MapQuest, Foursquare, the Better Business Bureau. Like these are, and so the more of these places,
I'm surprised Yellow Pages is there.
you know, nobody uses the Yellow Page book anymore, but the Yellow Page website is still considered a business resource to Google.
Okay.
And so to go through each of these and make sure your business, if your business is already listed, make sure it's the same name, address, and phone number as your Google business listing. If not, follow the directions provided on that website to update it or change it because you want it to be consistent. Some of these are really easy to do. Some of them are really, really hard to do. So example, for Better Business Bureau, hey, that'd be great. I think it's like $400, $500 a year. So not every business can do that. Manta, free, easy to do, easy set. Biz Journals, I'm actually still trying to figure out how to add a business to Biz Journals. I think it's expensive. I think you have to pay, but I'm still trying to figure that one out. And there's a lot that we've never heard of before, right? This list is in order by, I've taken 2 different sources that recommend business profiles. One's Bright Local and one's Whitespark. I combined them into one list and rated them in order by what they suggest. So the top of this are the most important, and the bottom probably are not all that important. The bottom ones are probably easier to add. The top ones are probably harder to add. But to be found by Google My Business, one of the things you have to do is name, address, phone number consistency. And I hope this spreadsheet can help you keep track of what you have in each one. You know, after you get your thing, add your profile here so you can always get back to it, you know. Look for incorrect data. Some of these will pull information from third-party sources, like if you have updated your business address at the post office, that might send data into some of these sources, and now you got to correct it because you're no longer at that old address. This can be a very time-consuming process, but there are ways to help expedite it. But now you know why I was so frustrated that the name of my client's business listing was changed in Google My Business. Because that name, address, phone number consistency was broken. And every other one of these listings said the proper name except for Google. So Google was then going and saying, all right, I'm going to check name, address, phone number on the incorrect name, and no one else used it. Therefore, that listing is not credible. So that's what was nefarious about that effort. Someone tried to break the name, address, phone number consistency. And we were able to fix it. Thankfully, now they're consistent again and being able to be found on Google, for Google My Business at least. So does that kind of explain the 2 different dimensions of local business
Yes.
optimization?
And boy, that is a whole other.
It is. It is. And there are some shortcuts that I mentioned in the process document for here. But of course, with the shortcuts, you're exchanging time and money. There are services you can pay to help you do this. So then you're just trading. Is it worth your time to do, or is it worth your time to pay someone to do it?
Right.
And that's just a business decision you have to make. In some cases, I'd almost, if I didn't have the budget to pay a service, I would just go through when I had time, start at the top. After I did my Google My Business, which is always where you start, Next thing I do is Facebook and do it and just work down this list one at a time until you're able to knock out as many of these as you can. But it is time consuming. The verification process for some of these is really difficult. Like the Google verification process is tough. But that's good because then it's hard to create a fake listing, which is another dark hat tactic people use.
Yeah. But for someone with a brick and mortar business, it is worth the effort.
Yeah. So there's two ways to look at this. Number one, if you have consistent name, address, and phone number on all these other websites, your Google My Business is more likely to show up. But two, people going to these third-party websites all the time. I don't use Apple Maps. I hate Apple Maps. But a lot of people do. And if they want people to find me on Apple Maps, I should be listed in Apple Maps.
Right. Right.
MapQuest, I don't use MapQuest anymore. I used to use it a lot, but I have some friends who just swear by it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are some others? Oh, Bing. Bing is interesting because Bing is what Alexa uses to populate their feed. So if you ask Alexa for a pizza near you, Alexa is going to recommend it based on Bing listings.
Okay.
Interesting, huh?
So you just explained something without knowing that. So have you seen, I don't know if you've ever seen someone offering a service to get your business listed on Alexa?
Chip Edwards, a good buddy of mine, offers a service like that.
Okay. So I'm wondering, well, with some of the ones I've seen, because of course, stuff pops up all over the map and Facebook, and I get all kind of emails because, I was on somebody's marketing list for X, but I had started seeing a lot of get your business listed on Alexa. And I'm like, how would you get your business listed on Alexa? And then you said, Alexa pulls from Bing. And I'm like, okay. So that's probably one of the ways people are getting on Alexa.
That is for a local brick and mortar business. So if you go to Alexa and ask for that, Alexa knows where you live because Amazon knows everything about you. And so that'll help. There are other things that some of these other services do. For instance, I think let's Create My Voice is Chip's business. He will allow people to listen to your blog post through Alexa.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
It is kind of cool. And so there's services like that you can use. I have a tendency to want to make sure I focus on the essentials before I start stepping out to that kind of thing. So I kind of focus on what is really delivering leads and sales for my clients before I start stepping my toes into other things like, and I'm going to put my blog on Alexa.
Right. Well, it was just an aha moment when you said that. It was like those dots just connected. So I've seen a lot of get your stories on Google, from Facebook stories, Instagram stories, whoever else has stories, because, there's so many different social media platforms. So there's a lot of now where people are advertising that they will get your stories on Google, and I sat there and wonder how they're doing that. Okay, we'll figure that out later. Because it's like that's not a huge, I don't know that people are actually on Google looking for stories. It sounds more like your image is popping up in the image search which, that can be very useful for driving traffic. But you connected a dot for me that just was like oh, okay.
Yeah. Good. Good. I'm glad to be able to help. Lavanya, we only have a couple minutes left. I want to make sure you get some time to ask if you have a question too.
No, I can't think of one right now. But if I do, I'll write it down and ask you about it next week. But I don't think I have, because I was going to ask you about Bing, but you answered that one. But Bing is a little bit different than Google. Do you use Bing for any of your clients?
I will admit to you that I pretty much neglect Bing.
Okay.
My philosophy, and it's totally wrong, is if I do well on Google, I'll do well on Bing. And Google has so much more market share that it's not worth the extra time to try to go for Bing. That could be very foolish. I know somebody who only focused on Bing because of the nature of their business. They were selling products for retired people, like medical assistant products, walkers, wheelchairs, things that older or retired people might need. This person focused exclusively on Bing because he knew his audience didn't know how to install Chrome or change the default browser away from Microsoft Internet Explorer or Edge.
Oh.
And so he said, I don't care about Google. I'm only going for Bing because that's where my audience is. They have a computer that their son or daughter bought them. They kind of know how to use it. They can get on the internet, and that means opening up Internet Explorer. And they don't even know enough to go to Google. They just type the search engine, and it happens to be Bing. And he did really well with that strategy. So there could be some missed opportunities. By the way, I only focus on Google. So I think if you had the right business, you could do really well on Bing. I think most people, however, are on Google. And I think, again, not having analyzed the algorithms between each one to really know the nuances and differences, they're probably pretty similar. So if I rank on Google and that's producing traffic, I'm probably doing a similar job on Bing.
And there was one I had about Google IQ, but we'll go into that next week. But I was going to ask you, I think I have to go back and look, but I think I saw where you have to be a part of an agency to take Google IQ. I thought anybody can do it, but
they might have changed. I don't think you have to be part of an agency. I think anybody can sign up for Google. It's the Google Analytics IQ certification. It's called individually qualified IQ. And so by the name, you don't have to be, but we did a class a couple months ago with some people. We all teamed up and studied for it.
Mm-hmm. And
I was the only one in an agency per se, and everyone else took the test too.
Oh, okay.
So they have been changing the platform that's using it, and maybe they've changed that. I would think not.
I'll go back and look. I thought I came across something that said I had to be, but I'll go back and look and see.
Yeah, Google Analytics individual or IQ, Google Analytics IQ certification, and look for a Google listing that shows you how to do it. I think that will send you to the right place. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend it. I learned so much. I do it every year, I think for the last 10 years.
Okay.
Really, really helpful. It's hard. But I know you can do it. But I'll admit, there's been years I did have to take it a test over because I didn't pass it the first time.
If you don't pass it the first time, how soon do they allow you to take it
I
again?
think it's a week.
A week? Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So that just gives me time to go back and review. But
Okay.
yeah, I think it will really open up the world of possibilities for you as far as understanding all that Google Analytics can do. And you being a little more technical person are going to have an easier time than a lot of people who aren't.
Well, hopefully. All right. And to sum it all up with the Yoast,
Yes.
do we have to have the Yoast plugin even though we're going through your game plan, which doesn't mention Yoast so far?
Right.
As I went?
No, I wrote the game plan to be platform agnostic, so should be able to do it on any old website.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing WordPress, I recommend Yoast. There's others plugins out there. Rank Math, I've heard it's really good. I've not tested it. All-in-one SEO plugin, I'm not a fan
I
of.
forgot about them.
Problems with that. There's others. I just feel that Yoast does a really good, and again, it's the stuff that's behind the scenes that most people don't even notice.
Mm.
In one sense, installing it and walking away, you're getting 90% of the benefit.
Okay.
But yeah, it's. I didn't want to make this something that's like how to use Yoast. Yoast has documentation on how to use it. So you don't really need this, but this is kind of like, okay, whether or not you use Yoast, I hope this advice will help you get
So
more
with
traffic from
So with
customers.
WordPress, we can use Yoast and go through your steps, or don't use Yoast at all and go through your steps. Either way, it'll still work.
I think so, yeah. Because I mean, I have one client on WordPress. Only one of my clients is running WordPress right now. Everybody else is just in different platforms. I'm following these same processes for everybody. Now, the one client that has WordPress has Yoast,
Mhm.
but no one else has Yoast.
Okay.
And so these processes are helping them connect with their customers, and I think it will for you too.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. I got to sign off, but it's so good to hear from both of you this week.
It was good to hear from you too.
I hope you stay healthy and happy, and I'll catch up with you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.